Hello everyone and welcome to Speak Your Truth. I'm Kristen Bomas, your host, and today we're going to talk about coincidence and synchronicity. I hear oftentimes people say, oh, that's just a coincidence, and they slough it off. Just a coincidence. Oh, you're not going to believe this coincidence. But what is a coincidence? Usually if the general public talks about coincidence, they hear it, it's kind of cool, and they let it go and they keep right on going. They kind of ignore it. They don't give it credence and value, right? And so they don't feel a sense of control over it. It's like magic. It just pops in. It's a coincidence. Wow. And then it goes away. So that coincidence doesn't appear to serve the individual who just sees it as coincidence. So what if we re-look at life? And what if we begin to understand that life is always speaking to us? And when we're looking at life mastery, we know life is always speaking to us. And from a mastery perspective, we're looking for where life is speaking to us. And we are so present in our everyday life that we can see life as it speaks to us. We're so present with what we see, feel, say, that we know what's happening. And that becomes critical to our mastery to read those coincidences as synchronicity, as the way life speaks to us. Let me give you an example. Long ago, I don't know how many years ago this was, maybe 10-ish, I was talking about someone I was working with, a shaman, and I said, gosh, he's really angry and he doesn't know it. And then I was with my best friend. I was like, wow, she's really angry and I don't think she knows it. And then I was sitting with a client and I was thinking, God, he's angry and he doesn't know it. And I was like, whoa, I just said that 3 times in a matter of maybe 10 days. It's time for me to see if I'm angry and maybe I don't know it. So I spent a week meditating. And each morning I'd wake up, and my office at the time, my window overlooked the east. So I'd get there early, and as the sun rose in the east, I would sit and meditate on anger within me. And around the 4th or 5th day, all of a sudden I had this unbelievable burst of awareness, emotion, some memory, some healing, a lot of just stuff. And I just fervently wrote it all down and really kind of tried to get all of my thoughts together. And I shifted at that point. But I would not have known I was angry if I wasn't present enough to my own voice to hear my discernment of others as angry. And it was in seeing that 3 times in a short period of time that I realized it was time to look inside me. That's one type of synchronicity. We may call it coincidence, but it's really synchronicity to me. Synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. It's when we take those times and we give it meaning to life. It gets us back on track. It helps us heal. It helps us become aware. The term synchronicity was originated by Carl Jung, and it was a way of him teaching his clients how to put pieces together that they called coincidence. And of course we know from a mastery perspective, which Jung also knew, that it is in the coincidences, it is in the synchronicity of life that we can be kept on track, that we can propel our healing and our growth. But being present in this life helps us with synchronicity quite a bit. So synchronicity is not something so crystal clear. Sometimes it's in symbols. So maybe I am in my backyard, I live in Florida, and an osprey comes down and swoops right down in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how beautiful. I mean, right in front of me. Now, a one-time deal, I might say to myself, because I'm always looking at how life is speaking to me, I might ask what that osprey is about. But if we're talking about synchronicity, imagine I enjoy this osprey and the next day I come home and I see 2 osprey and one is following the other and they both fly down and swirl in front of me and then take off down the canal. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I just saw 2 osprey. And in that synchronicity, it's trying to tell me something. It's time to sit down and look up that meaning of the osprey and what it's trying to say to me. And so I do. So this kind of synchronicity happens over and over and over again. Sometimes it's symbolic, as the example with the osprey, and sometimes it's literal, as in the example of the anger. It's up to us intuitively and internally to be aware of self and our spiritual essence, to know the difference in terms of what's happening. Some people will see the osprey, swoop down close to them on 2 occasions and get frightened and run from it, rather than understanding the wonderfully magical meaning that osprey is serving them. So at times, I have clients come in and they'll be meditating, and over they'll have the same symbol in the meditation, and like, what does that mean, Kristen? Well, let's look at what that means, right? Because if it's happening over and over and over, there's something for you to learn from it. So synchronicity is life's way of getting you back on track, keeping you on track, raising you up beyond challenges that can hold you more physically anchored to this plane. So we really want to know the symbols of our synchronicity when it isn't so literally spoken to us. So I want to go back. One of the things I said at the very beginning is, we want to be present in this life. And we talk a lot about being present, of living in the now, of not thinking about the past, of, all that blah, blah, blah. But being present means that we have done a lot of healing of the past, so it is no longer in the present. And once that happens in our life, the clarity with which we see each day, each event, is incredibly unique. We start to listen to the words as they flow from our mouth, because we want to know that connection from self out into that other space. What is the flow? What is that experience? And so we're attuned to self, to surroundings, moment to moment. Well, I don't know about moment to moment, that's a pretty brief amount of time, but second to second, minute to minute. And we get better and better and better at that as we heal more and more of the shadow side that interferes with that clarity. So as we grow and as we open to life, the synchronicity becomes much more profound, and at times becomes almost a guide, like street signs on a highway, telling us where to go next, what to do next. Are we following the right path, or have we gone awry? So synchronicity is very, very different than coincidence. Coincidence, we don't feel as meaningful. We don't feel in control of it. We don't bother to give it time and value and meaning at all. In synchronicity, we immediately value it. We sit back, we reflect, we grasp the gift that flows in its presence. And from it we grow, we move forward, and we embrace life that much more. So I offer each of you the opportunity, the next time you say, oh, what a coincidence, to let that remind you to stop and think about what just happened. In that coincidence, what did it teach you? Was I thinking about you and you called? Well, that coincidence is not a coincidence, but a validation that intuitively you are connected to the very person with whom you were speaking, or of whom you're speaking. So think within yourself about that coincidence. How is it working together? Is it just validating? Is it moving you forward and validating? Is it teaching you something that exists in this life? If I sit with a client and they talk about, God, I just had something really unusual happen today and I'm drawing a blank. But if I have one client sit in front of me and give an analogy of hitting a crossroads in life, this happened last week, and then another client comes in and uses another road example, and they're parallel roads. And then I had a third client come in and again use another highway example. And I stopped and I was like, okay, what are all of these people talking to me about roads for? What comes up with me when I think about roads? I think about the path, I think about the journey, I think about movement forward, going from point A to point B, movement, right? That's for me. Your meaning of that might be different. So I sat back that afternoon and I thought about that, and I'm like, okay, so what kind of movement do I need to see? I can see that there are going to be crossroads, and there are going to be times where I want to be in the fast lane, but I'm in the slow lane. And I can see that there are going to be times where my road takes a hard right. And am I supposed to continue on this road? Well, in all three of those examples, the answer was yes. And so I knew that in those three coincidences, that it was actually life speaking to me as well. So it pops up in unusual ways. If we shuck it off to coincidence, we don't take the next step to look at the synchronicity, its meaning, its gift. And in order to really propel ourselves forward, if we listen to that beautiful voice of life, we find that life will always keep us on track. So again, I offer you the opportunity to use that phrase, oh, it's a coincidence, to stop and think about what kind of a coincidence was it? And to sit back and see if you can figure out the meaning of synchronicity and what it's trying to speak to you about in your life at that time. Feel free to contact me at Ask Kristen on my website, or to get involved in any of my group discussions, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about the symbolism of your synchronicity and what is going on in your life around all of this. So I welcome all of you to step into the mastery of life by reading life's messages around you. Thank you very much. Please feel free to join me on Facebook every Monday and Thursday for live at 12:45, and be sure you subscribe if you liked what you heard. Thank you.